persist until the formation of the National Wrestling Alliance in 1948. The NWA as a central governing body, with its singular, undisputed world champion, would be absolute and undeniable. This control, combined with the expansion of the interstate highway system, and the inevitable popularity and availability of regional television, would usher in an era of wrestling that was defined by what would come to be known as the territory system. The territory system would dominate wrestling for nearly 4 decades, while the borders, authority, popularity, and obedience of individual NWA territories was in a near constant state of flux. To this day, the impact and influence of these territories is still felt. Each territory had its own signature promoter and star. While it is impossible to cram these characteristics into a static, concrete map, we are damn sure going to try anyway.
So open up your eyes, way before it gets too late. Now one man, there's no way you can hit the street lights running, don't give a damn. A simple explanation that you'll never find. Sinners never sacrifice. We never leave love alone. Is hate really worth the price? Look at what we've done. Never care for compromise. Always threatening someone's life, and it feels like the end of the world.
Participants eliminated from the competition, the tension rises for those remaining in Jacques Rougeau's Wrestling Academy. C'est temps de voir l'élite de Lutte Académie de Jacques Rougeau se diriger vers le sommet de la montagne. It's time, like the Macho Man used to say, the green rises to the top, ooh yeah. Préparez-vous, on s'en va en demi-finale. Get ready, we're going to the semi-finals. Il y a 19 personnes toujours en lice pour gagner l'un des 3 prix de $10 000. There's 19 participants still aiming for one of 3 prizes of $10,000 in 3 mois haut and 3 months at The Nightmare Factory with QT Marshall, Cody Rhodes, and Billy Gunn. Voici la carte des combats du 20 août prochain au Club Soda de Montréal. Here are the matches scheduled for August 20th at Montreal's Club Soda. The King, Brandon Bright, versus the Lion Warrior, Bobby Sharp. Combat à 3, triple threat match. The Salsa King, John Gonzalez, versus Jesse Beaver, versus Jefferson James. Relentless Riley Rose versus Cat Von East. Combat 3 contre 3, 3 versus 3 tag match. Stephen Maines, Gabriel Savage avec Michael Plouffe, York Hackett with Sugar Shane Pinto versus Maverick Wheeler, Sean Moore, Clutch Jesse B. Match à 3, triple threat match. Casey Spinelli versus Zoe Sager versus Sandro Lee. Michael Richard Blade versus Chad Daniels. Vous pouvez regarder les quarts de finale sur le www.lutteacademy.ca. You can watch the quarterfinals on www.wrestling-academy.ca. Avez-vous vos billets pour la demi-finale au Club Soda? Do you have your tickets for the semi-finals at Club Soda? Trop tard, too late. Mais vous pouvez acheter vos billets pour la finale du 17 septembre sur le site du Club Soda, mais faites vite. But you can purchase your tickets for the September 17 finals on the Club Soda website, but do act quickly.
All right, welcome to a live edition of This Week in Pro Wrestling. And the format's kind of changing because, last week we had Mantor in studio.
Yeah.
And it's almost coming like the Parent Show. But now we really have an icon in studio.
Oh, yeah.
Jacques Rougeau. Jacques Rougeau, thank you for joining us, sir.
Hey, thank you, gentlemen, for having me. It's really a pleasure to be back in Long Island, New York.
Long Island, New York. I don't know if that's a pleasure, dude. I mean,
What?
I wouldn't want to be here.
What? With the Nassau Mausoleum and everything, where he used to compete? What do you mean? I mean, the Nassau Coliseum?
There you go.
Hey.
So, Jacques, you recently just had a birthday, so we want to wish you a belated birthday. Happy birthday to you, sir.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And I'm going to say this to you respectfully.
Uh-oh.
We kind of just made contact with each other a couple of weeks ago, but I was looking over your Facebook, and I got to tell you, your better half is pretty nice looking, sir. You have done well for yourself.
She's better half.
It says here, hot tamale.
Well,
A hot tamale?
hot tamale.
Wow. All right. All righty.
Before we get going, Jacques, I wanted to say something to you. And this is from the heart from both me and my partner. You're an icon in this business, from your tag team wrestling with your brother to your great character role as the Mountie, and then eventually being on the Quebecers. Watching your interviews, I didn't know you personally, but obviously a fan of wrestling and knowing what you've meant for this industry. But watching your interviews, even like Dark Side of the Ring or whatever, you seem like, you are a really good guy. And I think it's important that we give you your flowers and say, I don't know how you lasted so long in the industry of wrestling being as good of a guy as you are. But kudos to you, and we're hoping that one day you reach the Hall of Fame because it's well-deserved.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you very much. I appreciate that very much. And, I'm not that of a nice guy, to be honest with you guys. I just, it's funny that you bring that up right away like this, because it's a subject lately with a lot of people, a lot of podcasts, because there's a lot of people out there that say that I'm not that kind of a guy. And, and I go over that subject with a lot of people, and I just say, hey, I want to establish something right off the bat. In life you have normal people that are, let's say they're here, and then you have autistic people that are about here, and I should be right here somewhere in the middle. And then, and it's like, so I've always had a hard time in life comprehending some things sometimes the way they were said in the dressing room, and I took everything so personally. Example, my brother Raymond was the smart one. He always sat down and he listened, and he was the man. And I was a little more like Shawn Michaels, big mouth and blah blah. I always want to have fun, but just sometimes getting on the nerves of a lot of guys. But where I think I picked up a lot of heat there in the dressing room over my career is the things that I took personally. There's factors that people don't know, but and if you listen to I'm thinking this guy here will come back to me anyway. He used to be a manager and the Brother Love there. What's his name? Bruce Pritchard. He made a 1-hour podcast on me a couple of weeks back, and I wasn't even there. He talked about me for about an hour, and about the French Canadian people. And then if you have a chance to look at that, you'll see a little bit of the animosity that I picked up in the dressing room, because I hated when the boys used to degrade Canada and used to degrade Montreal, because I do a lot of empathy today. I understand them, because a lot of those days they'd come to wrestle in Montreal or Canada, and first of all they'd lose 40% of their money, because if you make $1,000 in the States, it's worth $1,000. If you make $1,000 in Canada, you go back $600. So right then, I know when the guys got their booking sheet in the dressing room, they'd look over the town. Okay, I'm in Vegas, I'm in Pittsburgh. Oh no, I'm in goddamn Canada. And it was like, and plus there was the problem too of, let's face it, let's tell the truth as it is. there was a lot of drugs in those days, whether it was pill or steroids or whatever. So they couldn't cross the border with that. So they had to get rid of it. And all these factors also that we spoke French, and it was hard for them too, because they didn't understand what we were saying, and a lot of the boys, thought that maybe we were talking against them, but it was just easier for us to speak French. You're talking about Dino Bravo, Martel, me and Raymond, and every time the boys would go ahead and say, I'm going to the goddamn Montreal, or I'm going to this, I wouldn't be smart enough. I turn around and say, yeah, hey, what about the goddamn United States, and I'd defend my home and that, and I had an easy talk there. I wouldn't hold back on nothing, which I should have. So, but the funniest thing now that I realize is, through my wrestling academy that I'm doing now, the biggest contest on the globe right now, and I have all these guys. If you go on wrestling-academy.ca, you'll see all on this website, all the guys that I used to be with. I'm talking about Undertaker, Brett, Flair, you name them all. They all did a little video for my contest, and I feel like these guys like me. So it wasn't the kind of heat that I was never mean to anybody. I never tried to take anybody's job or nothing. But I should have learned to be more diplomat, when I was younger. And but it's never too late to be a better person. So I just wanted to clear that up. That I'm happy today. I see all the guys in Comic Cons everywhere, and everybody's pretty much nice to me. And I'm more quiet, so I have more friends.
There you go. Well, it's funny you brought up Canada and the United States. Obviously, you've been to both countries. In your opinion, what are the pros and cons between Canada and the United States? Again, if you don't frequent Canada enough, but you do hear the tales of, they've got, socialized medicine and it's so much better over there. Crime is down. What's the truth, Jacques, in your opinion?
I think that I'm going to be honest with you. I've been around the world, and I think that there's no better place than another. I think that we have different things that are good for us, and you guys in the States have different things that are good for you guys, like the weather. We don't, and everybody goes down south. I'm a snowbird now, but the crime rates here in Montreal is horrible. It's
Really?
like So yeah. So crime is everywhere. I always think, when a lot of people they say, I like this place because the people are nice there, and I like this place because the food is good there, and I like this place because the girls are pretty there, and I say to myself, it always depends on who you're hanging around with and what part of town you're hanging around with and where you go. I think that every town has their cachet, has their specialties, and so it's just a matter of knowing to be at the right place at the right time. And so to be honest with you, I maybe a little bit, I would say the handicap that we have up here in Canada is when it's cold, it's cold. But apart from that, I think there's nice people pretty much everywhere.
Is Canada as divided as the United States is nowadays? Because we are definitely at each other's throats.
Yeah, I think politics is a big thing in the States, bigger than Canada. We don't have guys like Donald Trump. We yeah, and I think that there's things that they say that you can't talk about in the living room. When you're with friends or family, like politics or religion or things like that. I think here it's secondary. I don't know how it is. I think the voting in the States is so much more like everybody goes to vote pretty much. Here, there's I think 60%, 50% of the people that vote, and there's 40 or 50 that don't even go vote anymore because they figure vote for one guy or vote for the other guy, you're still going to get the wrong end of the stick anyway. So I feel like they're all working for themselves, and I'm not a believer in politics anymore. But I know in the States it's and another thing too, I got to tell you, in the States the Army and the Navy, it's so well respected. You are so patriotic in the States. It's incredible. But here, like in Canada, it's more like the song that they did there with Michael Jackson, Cyndi Lauper, "We Are the World." It's like there's almost no more identity here, and the French is slowly disappearing in Quebec. There's more English, and so everybody's now is like bilingual pretty much. and there's less. I think there's less. Like when you go to the on the 4th of July in the States, you have a flag on every lawn, and but here now it seems like we are kind of losing our identity of like French Canadians and stuff like that. It's not as it used to be. So
Do you,
I don't know.
do you think that is because your country is now allowed, more immigrants into Canada more than before, and now you've just become infiltrated?
I think so. I think that has to do with that. And there's a lot more nationalities now coming in, and we have a government that wants to save the world. So it's like a prime minister wants to save the world. So it's like the philosophies are different than in the 70s and the 60s and like the days of my dad and my uncle, where they were so proud to be French Canadian, and the language, it was so important. And now it seems like the world has evolved also as in businesses. Like now you used to sell, your company would sell like to the local city around or the province right there where you're at. But now with the new internet and the new social medias and everything, everybody's selling overseas. Everybody's like so it's like I think that has one of the cause that we're losing our identity, I think.
So let's put this in a nutshell. You opened your arms and you've lost your identity, and the crime rate is up. Not a good solution, I don't think, right?
I think, but you know what? I don't think I'd do any better. I think today, what you watch on TV today is not even comparable to what you watched in my days when I was young. In my days, if example, just a sexual content, like you'd have a girl take off the part of her brassiere, and guys would be like,
Yeah.
they'd be looking at the TV, and today it's like it's different today. You see much more, and much more. They have more drugs on TV. They have more freedom with
Jacques,
there's more gay.
I don't want to interrupt you, but you're like a mind reader. Last night, my wife said to me, "There's nothing left to the imagination. 8-year-olds know about everything now."
Lame.
Right? Transgender, sex,
come on.
organ, everything. You are so right.
Ugh.
And I'm not saying anything against it. It's just that it was against my mentality. I was brought up differently, and now we have adjusted in time, and everybody adjusts in the situation. But this is a very delicate subject, but I don't mind talking about it because it's reality. There's a lot of gay scenes on TV now, whether either for the girls or either for the guys, and I wasn't used to seeing that. Now with time I'm getting used to it, but it's so TV and life is so more open now. Like you said, there's nothing left to the imagination. There's no more boundaries. There's no more rules, and so as I'm growing older, I'm always saying that. I'm sure my parents said the same thing. Like, oh boy, I wouldn't start this over. I wouldn't start my life over.
I don't know how long it's been going on over in Canada, and I don't want to make this worse for you, Jacques, but there are not American flags on every lawn anymore. And you were describing the United States when you were describing Canada's current state. I think we had a head start with you, and you guys are now experiencing what we've already experienced. So America is really not what it used to be. I'm sorry, but that's really the way it is right now over here.
So I think you have the same effect as we have. The world is. I think it's all to blame is like social medias. Like internet, Facebook, everything else that happened. Like and the news. I remember when I was young, I used to watch the news and I'd see what was going on in my own province. And once in a blue moon, you'd see something in another country. And now it's different. So I guess there's some good points in that, and the people who learn faster, they're smarter. And so that may work for us one day. Who knows?
One day, hopefully. Well, you mentioned your wrestling academy. Why don't you tell us about your wrestling academy?
This is amazing, guys. I got to tell you guys, this was a dream I had 2 years ago with my girlfriend, her and me. And there was a reality show, actually. It was for singing in Quebec. And and they would bring in like some amateur singers from pretty much everywhere, and every week they would eliminate some the less better ones, and they would keep the better ones, and at the end the big winner would sing at the Molson Center when 20,000 people with Celine Dion, and so that was their prize. And one day I was during the pandemic, I was doing my podcast with my son and the Rougeau podcast, and I had all kinds of guests, and I had this girl she was the winner of the Star Academy, and there was that singing contest, and so she started explaining how it went and how it was exciting and this, and the people were voting and stuff like that. And then after the podcast, I looked at my girlfriend and I said, "Wow," I said, "wouldn't that be fun if we did something like that with wrestling? Like a wrestling academy." So I turned around and I started sending invitations through Canada, and it was the first time that all the provinces have worked together, because every province has their own federation. There's small federations, and so I got everybody on board from East Coast to West Coast, and we started doing a wrestling academy, 4 shows. And it's only 4 shows, so you have the quarterfinals, another quarterfinals, and semifinals, and the finals, and I had to think of something to draw them in. So I found some sponsors last year, and we had 4 sponsors of $5,000. So 4 winners, 3 men and 1 woman, and to have $5,000 each. And then I said to myself, we need to give a little more incentive, like something to draw them in. So it just so happened that I send out a hello to QT Marshall at the Nightmare Factory in Atlanta, Georgia, and not knowing that. And my idea was like, I'm going to rent a car with my 4 winners from Montreal, and it's a 20-hour drive, and I'm going to drive there with a van and bring my 4 winners. And I asked QT Marshall, I said, would you mind if I take my 4 winners and I bring them to the Nightmare Factory, and you judge them like for a whole day? Like you take them in the ring, and then you do interviews with them, and you just give them like some advice and stuff like that. And QT Marshall, I was surprised. He said, yeah, let's do that. So last year I started promoting that, and then I had like 21 inscriptions from Quebec and only 19 from Canada. It was like 9 provinces gave me 19 participants, and 1 province, mine, gave me 21. So it wasn't like everybody believed in this project. A lot of the people out in Western Canada and Eastern Canada were saying, yeah, you think he's going to give us $5,000 and this, and we're going to go spend the day at the Nightmare Factory. So finally we did the contest last year, and as we were doing it, QT Marshall, I was doing podcasts like this one here, but I was doing them around the world because I have some kind of notoriety, and I was doing some in Australia, some in Europe. I was doing some all over the States, and I kept talking about Wrestling Academy and the Nightmare Factory. So at one point, I got a call from QT Marshall, and he told me, he says, Jacques, he says, what are you doing? And I got scared for a second. I said, did I do something wrong? And then he says, my phone here is like red. He says, people are calling from all over for the Nightmare Factory to see, first of all, is it true that you're working with Jacques Rougeau in Montreal? Because he's using your name. And then is it true that you're going to take the winners to spend the day there? And I had lovers that called in. I had haters that called in. Everybody was checking to see if it's true. So he told me, he said, Jacques, he says, you're talking so much about the Nightmare Factory. He says, this is interesting. He says, why don't, instead of they come in for 1 day, why don't they come in for 1 week? So I said, wow, 1 week. So I put that on my group chat. All my participants said, hey guys, I got good news. I said, my 4 winners this year are going to go spend 1 week at the Nightmare Factory. So they were all excited and stuff. So 4 more months goes by before the competition, and QT Marshall, he sends me another promo. And because I asked him for an update, because I said, there's a lot of haters trying to destroy this project. I said, can you just reinforce it, please, by saying that my winners are really going to spend a week there? So he says, I'll do that later today. So I go on this podcast in Montreal, Nick Podcast, and it's a podcast here in Montreal. So he sends me the video, and my girlfriend's right beside me. So I'm going on this podcast about wrestling, and I said, hey, I got a promo I'd like to show from QT Marshall in Atlanta, just to prove you that this is true, that I spend a week. So he goes like this. He says, well, ladies and gentlemen, up in Montreal, I just want to say you heard it from the horse's mouth that the 4 winners of Jacques Rougeau's Wrestling Academy are going to come and spend 3 months at the Nightmare Factory. And I went like, I looked at my girlfriend. I said, did you hear this? He said 3 months. So I couldn't believe it. So I freaked out. So then it's almost like we became QT Marshall's pet project in Canada. So I put that in the group chat, and then it started. So then I really had some haters and people saying, because I announced it, like, hey, my winners are gonna go 3 months, and so then I put the video on, and then it started really growing, and it was so funny because all this happened, and then when I got to my last show in August last year, QT Marshall was on the giant screen to come and choose the last 4 winners and the competition. And then he said, you know what? He says, I want all you 4 winners to come to the debut, the AEW in Canada for the first show. And I'm going to get you guys on Dynamite and Rampage too for a gift, plus 2 others that I eliminated. So I'm going to get 6 of you guys on there. So this year, when we start, actually last fall, when we start taking the inscriptions for this year's contest, everything has changed because my credibility went from nothing to everything. So everybody got paid. Everybody went to the AEW Dynamite Rampage. Everybody went to the QT Marshall Nightmare Factory with Billy Gunn and Cody Rhodes. And then so this year, instead of having 21 inscriptions from Quebec and 19 from Canada, I have 11 from Quebec and 60 from Canada. So now the show is so much better because all the talent from Vancouver, from Calgary, from Edmonton, from Regina, Saskatoon, from Prince Edward Islands, all the way in the East Coast, they all send in the videos. And QT Marshall told me, he says, Jacques, he says, listen, this year, he says, I don't want you to choose all the people that's going to be in the contest. He says, I want you, when you come back from Florida there, when you're going to Florida, because I'm a snowbird, so in the fall, he says, when you go down to Florida this fall, I want you to stop at the Nightmare Factory. And he says, I want to choose them with you. And he says, apart from that, he says, if you don't mind, he says, I would like next year to be there on the giant screen, not only for the finals, but I want to be there for the quarterfinals and the semifinals and the finals. So he gave me a big, big bonus. So everybody's so excited this year. And as we started this competition, there goes QT Marshall with his heart of gold. And he turns on and he says, why don't we make this interesting? He says, one of the guys that I'm going to eliminate this year, he says, I'm going to go ahead. We talked, me and QT, and we came up with this idea that he's going to come to Montreal for the finals this year, live here in Montreal. And he's going to wrestle against someone that he eliminated in the semifinals. And this year, the winners, instead of winning $5,000, they're winning $10,000. So we found more sponsors and stuff like that. So this is a miracle. It's the biggest contest around the globe right now. Imagine guys that go wrestle and ladies that go wrestle for $100 a night, $150, and now they're wrestling after 3 shows. They're wrestling for 10 grand. That's how much I made at WrestleMania 10.
Wow. Jacques, what's with the haters, though? I don't get it. Why would somebody try to stop you from doing something so awesome? I'm confused.
I don't know. To be honest with you, I think, there's I got to tell you the truth there. There's a lot of jealousy in wrestling, and and everybody wants to have their name put in the brand, and there's a lot of the guys, they I always said to myself, you don't send a plumber to do an electrician job. And there's a lot of plumbers here up in Quebec, that want to become promoters and wrestlers, and they just don't like the fact that and let's face the truth. For 30 years, I didn't speak with Vince McMahon. I'm still not speaking with him, and so they're very strong here in Quebec. So that causes a little bit of conflicts and so all that. So I'm more now AEW, of course, because working with QT Marshall and stuff like that. So you have Pepsi and Coke in the same place. So the ones that want Pepsi to beat Coke, they're going to work hard for that. And I respect them all. I do. I respect everybody who tries to make a living out of this. But I feel like I'm not stealing anything from anybody. I'm in my backyard here. I wrestled for 45 years professionally. So, I think this is my place. And I think this year again, it's amazing that I can't stop thinking about, if I was a young pup there and I was starting into business, there's one thing, guys, you have to understand. I remember when I was real young, my dad told me there's 2 criteria to become a great wrestler and to make it in this business. First, you got to be at the right place at the right time. And then you got to know the right people. And, and this deal here, I can't get American papers for my people in Canada. That's the biggest problem that the Canadian wrestlers have. They can't get working visas. But I could get them now 3 months at the Nightmare Factory to be seen by QT Marshall, Billy Gunn in AEW and Cody Rhodes in WWE. So if they see something they like, if they see something extraordinary out of one of the talents in Canada, then they could go ahead and try to get their papers or do what they have to do. I just want to put them a foot in the door there. And that's what I'm doing now. And that's so amazing for me. I never had a chance like that when I was young. It was different. It was small territories. So I think this is the greatest opportunity right now on the planet for the Canadian wrestlers. And I'm proud to be putting this together. Jacques Rougeau's Wrestling Academy with my girlfriend, who's my rock and all this. And so it's just amazing. I'm reliving again my passion like I was 15 years old again, and I'm 63.
You could see it in your face, man. You could see it in your face. Real quick question. You mentioned McMahon. What was the fallout between you and Mr. McMahon?
I think, as I'm growing older, I think there's a little bit of both here that's in fault. I think one thing Vince never understood is us being on the road 25 days a month in a row and not seeing our families and wanting to make it to the top, wanting to get the belts, wanting to get the merchant value that you have as a character. And everybody's fighting for that top spot, and we're all waiting in line to get the belts because I thought that was one of the best ways to. And after being there for 4 years with my brother Raymond and never getting the tag belts, which we deserved, and we had it one night in Montreal, but they took it away by video the next day, and they never acknowledged it at the WWF.
Boo.
And then working at becoming the Intercontinental title for 2 days. Hey, it's not bad. 2 days, it's okay. I still think it was awesome because when people come to Comic Cons, they always have a doll with me with the belt around the Intercontinental belt. I look at that and I said, man, I'm the shortest lived Intercontinental title holder. But anyway, that's fun. But then as the years progress, I came back as a Quebecers with Carl. You want to, and we were lucky. We took the belts right off the bat off the Steiners the first night in Manhattan at Monday Night Raw as we came in as a team. But you become more, you want more faster. I paid my dues. And you want to have a top spot. You want to stay in the top spot. And then there was a time there like for so many months, Carl and I, we were getting beat night after night by middle teams, by underdog teams, but they kept telling us, and they kept telling me, don't worry, Jacques, because at WrestleMania 10, you guys are against the moms, men on a mission, and you guys are going to beat them right in the middle, and you're going to get all your credibility back. And we were going to Toronto, going to Montreal, and getting pinned in our hometowns, getting beat. But they kept telling us, Pat Patterson kept telling us, don't worry, Jacques, you're going to get all your credibility back at WrestleMania 10. And when we got there, I think that the fact that they had us hanging on there because we were working so hard and we were waiting for that moment. And then when we got there, then a couple hours before the show, Pat came to see me and told me hey, listen, Jacques, Vince was thinking there that, if we beat the moms tonight, what are they going to do? What are they going to do with them? And I looked at Pat and I said, well, I don't give a shit. I said, for 5 months, you've been telling us that this is our night and this is where we're getting all our credibility back. And now you want to change it? And that was such an insult. And I never knew how to deal with that.
Yeah.
That was my fault. I was immature probably. And so I had this grudge inside of me. I felt like I was used. And I felt, and all the good things that he did for me, because he did plenty of good things for me, they seemed to all disappear because it was a hard time those times. So after that, then I just got my retirement match and finished my bookings with him, and I finished off, and I went to WCW and then came back one time, but it never came back. Even when he came back for that short period of time, it was Jim Ross that was there, and Vince was barely talking, and he was probably upset that I went to WCW, and that's okay. But I was upset at him, he was upset at me, and things go on. I think it's a cruel world, the business. But it just I don't think that Vince will ever understand how it is to be on the road 25 days a month with the boys that are sometimes a little loud and obnoxious and different and in their own characters and their own gears and their own state of mind and trying to stay calm, like, because you see them at the airport all day, you see them in the gym, you see them at the hotel, you see them at the restaurant, you see them in the arena. You're married to these guys, day after day, so it becomes hard. And then when so I lost a little bit of, probably a little self-control myself too, a lot of patience and stuff like that. I think it's a mix of everything together. If I had to start over some things, maybe I would. Who knows how it is? I'm a little bit more mature today, but that's what happened really. For me, that was the falling out, and so I honestly think that. If I'm being honest with you, after spending like from 85 that I signed with them all the way to 90, 94 or 95, I spent 10 years there approximately in WWF, WWE, and I think that everything that I've accomplished with my brother Raymond, with Carl, and just me as a Mountie, thinking the jailhouse match and everything that we did, I think that the Rougeau name deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And I'm holding it against him because he created these years. I was there when we did marathon matches, the Rockers, like 1 hour matches. So I did one in Nassau Coliseum, as a matter of fact. And when we did matches, like against the Hart Foundations, Bret Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart they became so over at a certain point. But I always say to myself, to create Batman, you need a good Joker. In the movie, and we were the good Joker all the time, but I think of guys like Steve Lombardi, and Jim Powers, and there's a lot of guys that are not recognized that came in weekly, and on TV to put us guys over us, but we could have never danced without them. It takes two to dance, and I also think that everybody that was on that WrestleMania 3 card in front of 94 or 93,000 people should be in the Hall of Fame. Because it's amazing the talent that was there, but all these sacrifices that we did and made, and especially that we're 4 generations of wrestlers, the Rougeau family. I think of the Von Erichs, the Harts, and the Fullers, the Welches. Man, it's like there's so many families that were.
Oh no. Did we lose him?
The Mountie has been frozen.
And the dancers and whoever he puts in there when he wants, and it's okay, and because politically it's better for him to do so. But I'm told everywhere I go, Jacques, when are you going to be in the Hall of Fame? Jacques, when are you going to be in the Hall of Fame? And I say probably when I go kick Vince's ass, I'll probably be in there. But
Jacques,
anyway, so I won't be in there pretty soon.
Do you think it's today's wrestling fan also that's the problem? So, for example, okay, me and Jimmy are just fans, right? But we recognize the talents of a Johnny Rods, a big Ron Shaw.
Yeah.
I'm naming names, whatever. Today's wrestling fan seems not to give that respect for those Steve Lombardis and the names that you had just spouted off.
I think it's a matter of perspective. I think that there were so many great talents. I'm even thinking of the Killer Bees. I'm thinking of the Rockers, Marty Jannetty. Man, these guys, we rocked the boat. We'd go. There's so many matches that we had, and so many times. Another thing that hurts me personally is that we were on many times. We were on the card. There was A Town, B Town, and C Town. And many times we were with the A-Town with Hulk on the main event, and we were so happy. And of course, there was 8 matches, and but believe it or not, that we'd get to the arena there, and on 4th match, Hulk would come out many times. And the last match of the evening would be the Rougeaus and the Hart Foundation. They'd put us on last, and many times in many arenas we finished last. Because we had such great matches, we had people on their feet, and so just all those things that they did, and that I was put in positions that I think I fulfilled. I honestly do. I don't know. I don't know what to say except maybe one day. I know that Hulk did a nice video last fall.
Yep.
And I couldn't believe it. I saw the video where Hulk says, "I got a good feeling the Rougeaus are going to be in the Hall of Fame."
I honestly really think it's coming. You just brought up some of your iconic matches with the Rockers. Quick question for you. At the time you were working with them, we've had Marty in studio many times. Who was the better wrestler in your mind at that point, Jannetty or Michaels?
Two great wrestlers. One. It's a little bit like Raymond and I. Like Raymond and I, we can't compare who was the best. We were just complementary to each other. Like Shawn Michaels, charismatic, the really good looking guy. The girls really high flying, backflips off the top rope and stuff. And Marty, what a ground wrestler, like my brother Raymond. You can have the best house on the hill, the most beautiful house on the hill, but if you don't have a good foundation, you don't have a good house. It's going to fall apart. And so Marty, for me, was such a pleasure to work with him, too. Like, night after night, going around the world with these guys and having 20, 25-minute matches, 30-minute matches, marathon matches for an hour. And we did a whole week of marathon matches. And even one day, we were in Europe, and there's 6 hours different. So we had a marathon match in the afternoon at 1 o'clock. We took a 6-hour flight, and we had a 7 o'clock in Philadelphia, another marathon match, another hour match. 2 in one day. You could only do that with great workers. And so if you ask me who was the best wrestler between the both, they were both extraordinary.
It's a choice between Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, I guess, as far as their mat ability. All right. How about, let me see here. I wanted to take a look at something that I was looking at before. You mentioned your brother. Now, your brother is a mayor, as we spoke about before the show came on. Could you tell us how this comes about, and did you even have a clue that he was going to turn out being a mayor?
Well, Raymond's been in politics, I think, for 20 years. He was who do you call the people that come at the municipal meeting there that support the mayor? Like there's 6, 7 of them. That's like and Raymond was one of those, or conseiller that we say in French. But so he worked with the old mayors for 20 years, I think, and but always there just a second. Raymond's such a smart person. He's financially so wealthy, and he always, he's so smart in business. He was really well drilled by my dad and my uncle. He was a listener, a learner, and he did all that. A great wrestler. And then one day, I don't know, I guess it's probably the people that he worked with in the town that he lived that probably said, because he's so well organized. And so they probably told him, like, hey, maybe you should be mayor, and it just so happened, and I thought it was funny, because I thought of Jesse the Body Ventura, and I thought a couple of people like that. I never pictured my brother to be a mayor, but he's doing such a great job. It's like it's incredible how he has the visibility he has, there's a catastrophe or something in our little town, like in a little town of, I don't know, I'm going to say a crazy number here, like 10,000 people, and the province is like 9 million people. But in that little 10,000 people, if there's a little flood or something, there's flood everywhere in Quebec, but they're going to come to see Raymond because he speaks so well and he has such a nice French, and he's so educated, well educated. So everybody loved Raymond. It's funny. So of course he's got a couple of haters, I'm sure, but he's a Rougeau. But anyway, but I'll have to say, everybody loves Raymond. If you go on podcasts, you hear podcasts of the wrestlers, they all speak so highly of Raymond. He was so smart. I remember, this is funny because I remember a lot of times, we weren't happy or something, and then I tell Raymond, driving down the car or something, I said, I can't take this anymore. I'm going to go see Vince. And Raymond looked at me and says, oh, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. If there was something there we had to move around there or shake up a bit there, go ahead. And he was a smart one, and but he was, but I laughed today because it's funny. Life is life. But Raymond, I'm so proud of him. I really am, and it's so funny because on the last show on the 4th of June of the quarterfinals, QT Marshall was going to Mexico because the AEW were opening Mexico that night, so he couldn't be in the giant screen. So I asked my brother Raymond to be the judge, on the giant screen, and that was just so awesome. We hadn't worked together in 20 years on a wrestling show, Raymond and I. So I'm doing the commentaries with a couple of guys, the winner of last year, Jeremy Prophet, and another guy, Michel Monette. And then we give our commentaries after each match, and then the matches, they stand up and they look at the screen, and here comes the big giant screen, and there my brother Raymond appears, and he surprised me so much because, I put him there as a judge, a replacement judge. And now I don't want to kick QT Marshall out because I get the 3 months at the Nightmare Factory, but Raymond was so good because he's such a good basic wrestler, and and he's so smart. So he had the way of to make every wrestler feel great and having a hard decision to make. And everybody in the fans and everybody was looking at the screen like waiting to see his decision because he had so many compliments to give to each. And it was amazing working with Raymond like that.
You got your start off in Stu Hart's organization. I kind of want to run it this way. We had the opportunity to bring in Teddy Hart years ago, and I had heard some bad things, obviously, and then most recently I watched that documentary on him. What are your thoughts on Teddy Hart? Did you run into him at all during your career, and did you know anything about him?
Guys, I'm going to disappoint you so much, guys. So get ready, guys. I'm really going to disappoint you.
It's okay.
Guys.
Go ahead.
When I had my falling out with Vince McMahon 30 years ago, I was so upset with wrestling, with WWE, that I turned my TV off, and I never watched a wrestling show. I never followed a wrestling organization. I don't know any of the talent in the last 30 years. I know Kevin Owens because I'm the one who taught him how to wrestle for 4 years when he came to my school at 14 years old.
Thank you
and
for
I know
that.
and I know John Cena because of the movies, and I know a couple of guys that you hear names of, but I haven't followed wrestling. And the only wrestling that I followed in the last year or so, maybe once or twice, was AEW, just because my students were wrestling on the show. Now I'm starting slowly to get back in AEW because of the partnership I have with QT Marshall and them. So I'm starting to get back. So when people talk to me about CM Punk that people are talking about, or I didn't even know up till last year that the Smoking Guns had their sons working in there, and so I'm so ignorant in wrestling, it's a shame. But the good thing about it is I had my own promotion for 20 years, and the reason why I did that also is I didn't want to watch TV, and I didn't want to copy what they were doing. I wanted to be original in my company. So I didn't want to have their ideas. I don't want to take their ideas. And every time I watch a TV, I could see in my own mind, I could see Vince McMahon again. So I didn't want to see it. So it was like a personal animosity I had towards the Federation, towards wrestling in general, for what I'd been there and what I'd done and what was left out of it. And so when people talk to me today about wrestling, I'm almost so embarrassed. Because, I'm 45 years in the business, and now in the last 20, 30 years, I don't know the talents, So sometimes I go to Comic-Cons. It's so funny because, I do about 10 a year there. I went to Europe. I'm going a little bit everywhere. I'm going to Nashville next week. And I sit down, and I see all these people in line in front of this guy that I've never seen before, And I said, hey, I always ask, hey, that guy's popular. Who is he? Oh, well, that's TM Punk. Oh, yeah, okay. but it's like, so it's funny, So that's where I'm at, guys. So please don't go with too much the intellectual questions
not at all.
about the talent there.
Not at all.
So how'd you like the Attitude Era? Oh, you missed it. Never mind. That's hilarious.
I know The Rock.
There you
I
go.
know The Rock, but he was more V at the time.
There you go. You mentioned, obviously, we're talking about the Heart, so let's talk about when you did win the Intercontinental title, which I was so thrilled. Bret Hart bores me to tears. Thank you, Mountie. Anyway, only 2 days you hold it, and they did it under the guise that, Bret had the flu? How did that make you feel? And couldn't they find some other better way to put you over? What is that?
To be honest with you, when I look back at it, I appreciate that Vince, took me to make the title change because now, like I said, everywhere I go, people look at me and it's funny because I'm the worst, but everybody looks at me and say, oh man, you're the greatest Intercontinental champion of all times. And I have a lot of my fans that say that.
Those 48 hours were killer.
And I say, I hope you didn't blink your eyes. But anyway, so it's like, but taking it from Bret, I was so happy when they announced it to me, but then I was so disappointed when he went into the ring and he said he had 104-degree fever and that the doctor told him that he shouldn't wrestle and that he's going to wrestle anyway. So I guess I beat a sick man. But it's okay. But that's the way it was. At least I got to tell you guys this story real fast. What was fun about it is when I had the belt that night. It was about 11 o'clock. I got back in the dressing room and I called this reporter in Montreal, a friend of mine. He's about 60 years old. He goes to bed at 8 o'clock, 7 at night. And so I called him up and I said, I told him, I said, hey, listen, I said, would you mind? I said, I'm going to send you a picture today. To Andre Rousseau was his name. I said, Andre, I said, do you mind if I? He says, Jacques, it's like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. I'm sleeping. I said, yeah. I said, he says, call me, not tomorrow. I'm doing hockey. I'm doing
Oh
this.
no.
I said, no. He says, call me in a couple of days. I said, no, I can't. I can't. I said, you have to put the picture in tomorrow
Now,
or the
yeah.
next day, because I knew that I was going to lose it, but it was fun because they put the picture, they did the nice thing in the Montreal paper for me, winning the Intercontinental title. And then, it was funny because I loved Rowdy Piper. I really loved the guy. He was such a nice guy in the dressing room, such a nice guy. And he came up to me, and I told him, I said, I have an idea. I said, would you mind if I'd like to suggest something? He says, go ahead, brother, go ahead. And he was taking the title from me. And I said, I said, listen, I said, I'd like for you to wear this vest under your shirt that says anti-shock on it. So I'll do a finish there where I shock you with the stick. And and you take the bump, and I turn around and I go, I am the Mountie. And then I turn back around, and he's right back in my face, and boom, and bing, and bang, but people really like that anti-shock shirt thing, but he went right with it, and that was fun for me, because so the only thing I didn't like working with Rowdy was, Jesus, he was so in shape. Like, he'd never stop, like you couldn't keep him down. He wasn't the kind of heel that I'd get heat like on the Boss Man or heat on the Rockers or the Hearts, where you got him down and you have time to acknowledge the people and get your heat, and I had a lot of communication with the fans but with Rowdy, you better get to your business and do your business fast, because he's going to stop you and he's going to take over. And then so that was the only thing I didn't like. I liked a little less working with Rowdy, but that's why he was so hot, and that's why he was such a character.
How was Roddy as a person to other people in the locker room, and Roddy in general? Can you describe Roddy Piper, the human being?
Rowdy was a special kind of guy. Rowdy was a guy who I would say he was always nice to everybody. Always nice to everybody. He would talk to everybody, and he wouldn't. Not only would he would talk to everybody, but he would talk about your family. He would ask you about the things that were bringing you back to real life. And he was a really nice guy. I love that guy a lot.
I don't think you should be too surprised at the fact to this day the Intercontinental title win means so much to the people who tell you how much it means to them, because you won the title when it actually counted for something. It's almost like when Stan Stasiak held the belt for 9 days in the early 70s, but the title counted. So I think that's why people still adore you to this day.
It's funny that you say that, because I don't understand quite when people say that, but a lot of people tell me that. They say, and it's the same line you just told me, Pharaoh. It's like, and it's funny because you won the belt for such a short time, but it meant something at the time. And I don't think I understand what people when they say that. It's like
what has happened over the years is, unfortunately, now they're bringing it back to some prestige currently, but in the decade since you left, the Intercontinental title started to become very, very meaningless. It was passed around constantly.
What do you mean by meaningless?
Well, the card started to concentrate on other aspects of the show, and the title itself became diminished slowly. It's hard to explain unless you witnessed it over the years, but it also happened to other titles. Basically,
but a lot of people say what you said there, and and I don't quite understand, but I guess you have some point there. You got a point that's right, because, like I said, the people come to see me for signatures and Comic-Cons and stuff like that, and everything I have the title on the pictures. Everybody come to see me, and if you don't mind, I'd like to take a second here, guys, to talk about somebody very special for me.
Sure.
Very special to me, Jimmy Hart. I want to talk to you about Jimmy Hart, because Jimmy Hart was my manager with Raymond when we turned heels and we moved to Memphis, and we were the Fabulous Rougeau brothers. But and then when I came back as a Mountie, I asked two things with Vince. I said, I want just two things. I said, I want to have Jimmy Hart as my manager, and I want to bring in a shock stick. And and he gave them to me both. But Jimmy Hart, to me today, that's only my opinion, is the best manager of all times. And let me tell you why. I've seen a lot of managers, but But Jimmy Hart, he would buy some suits that would suit your suit and your costume. Jimmy Hart would make your music. Jimmy Hart was the guy who never went out in nightclubs. He was always 1 hour early before on time he was supposed to be. Jimmy Hart was so reliable, always looking out for his guy on a personal matter, like, Jacques, it's better if you do this, it's better if you don't do that, it's better if you do this. And Jimmy Hart was the only manager that I know, the only one. The whole time I had him as a manager, I had him like for almost 3 years as a manager, and he was the only guy that would come on TV, the only one who wouldn't say, let me tell you something. I got something here in my mind. I'm thinking, you know what, I know this. And Jimmy Hart would come in. He would never take anything on him. It was always on his proteges. He'd come in there and he'd say, hey, let me tell you something. My man right here, he's the best. And my man right here is, it was always talking about his man, never about himself. And we as characters felt so important when Jimmy Hart would get on an interview with us because he'd build us up to be so special. So to me, Jimmy Hart was, up till today, is the greatest manager of all times.
Hard to argue that. Jacques, one last time, where can the fans see your Wrestling Academy? To give them all the information so they could sign on and get involved.
Well, thank you so much. And if you go on wrestling-academy.ca, you could now see the two first quarterfinals event that was on the 7th of May and 4th of June. And now on the 20th of August, it's the semifinals. We're down to the little bunch now. And then on the 17th of September, something really special is happening, guys. I got to tell you this is amazing. Like I said before, on the semifinals on the 20th of August, QT Marshall's going to eliminate the last crew before he chooses on the 17th of September. But on the 20th of August, he's going to eliminate maybe 10 guys and 3 girls. And on that day, he's going to choose one of the guys that he's going to come back in Montreal for the finals and wrestle against him as a consolation prize. But just 2 days ago, QT Marshall gave me another gift. I don't know if you guys know a girl called Ashley D'Amboise. She's for Ring of Honor now. And she's AEW. And QT Marshall trained her. So she just signed up with us that on the 17th of September at the finals, the same day QT Marshall comes to wrestle one of the consolation prize, the guys, she's going to come to Montreal and wrestle one of the girls that were eliminated on the 20th of August. So she'll come on the 17th of September also to wrestle. And so if you go on my Facebook, that's the best place to go. To be honest with you, I write every day. As a matter of fact, my girlfriend says, stop writing. But anyway, I put all kinds of stuff every day. So if you go see Jacques Rougeau, you'll see a picture of me and my girlfriend, and you see everything. I talk about the matches, the pictures, the talent that is so amazing this year. And if you want to go and see all the talent itself, go on wrestling-academy.ca. You could click on every picture and you'll have a little 15-second promo, plus their best moves for 15 seconds. And then if you want to go up a little lower down on that website, you'll see all your old timers, your favorites there. Double J, Jeff Jarrett, them. You'll see them all. They're all there, and they all say a good word for Wrestling Academy for the participants. They encourage them. So it's really a nice place to go spend like an hour or a half hour of your time. Wrestling-academy.ca. Keep watching us, and like you said, the 20th of August is my next show, and it takes me about 4 or 5 days after the show to put it on the website. So around the 25th of August, something like that, you'll see the semifinals results. And then on the 17th of September, it'll be the finals. So then around the 22nd of September, you'll see the whole schmoz, the whole winners, the 10,000 prizes that are given live by the sponsors that are so amazing. And I'm very, very excited. And so thank you guys very much for giving me this visibility today.
Well, if you don't mind, we're going to start running your commercial on our show, as long as you're not going to sue us over it.
Oh, my God.
Wow, that's very kind. That's very kind of you. Very kind.
We want to thank you for joining us on This Week in Wrestling. I want to remind everybody we go on at 9 o'clock with the wife of Wahoo McDaniel.
Yes, sir.
Karen McDaniel.
Yes,
so
sir.
much to talk to you about, Jacques. You're a great guy. Thank you so much. One last thing. I want to hit you with something called the Pharaoh's Final Question.
Ooh.
This is where Jimmy does something unscripted. He may ask you if you like chicken or beef.
What?
McDonald's or Wendy's. I don't know, but Jimmy?
All right. Okay, Jacques. You're sitting at home. You're watching the NHL Network, watching classic Quebec Nordique games. The phone rings. It's Vince McMahon, but he wants you to initiate the conversation. What do you say to Vince?
I say to Vince, like, we had so many great memories together. Let bygones be bygones, and show some good faith there, and put me in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
You're in.
Jacques, thank you again. Have
can hear
a
it.
blessed weekend, and thank you. You're quite the gentleman.
Hey, Monty, remember one thing. I am the Monty.
That you are, sir.
Mountie and the Pharaoh? I'm confused.
Jimmy,
Thank
send
you,
us
Jacques.
out, bro.
Thank you very much.
much.
You've been watching This Week in Wrestling with Monty, the Mountie, and the Pharaoh. And until next week in wrestling, later.